Welcome back. This is Walter Amarillo with the Alchemist Nation podcast. I'm hanging out with Fred Posimo. Did I pronounce that right? Posimo. No, it's Posimo. You can just correct me, man. No worries.
It's all good. It's all good. You can call me whatever you want.
But as long as it's calling you for a deal or making money or buying some real estate, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Making money or having fun. That's my favorite part.
Making money or having fun. Sounds like two really good rules. Mitch Jaworski told me that you are the guy to interview. How do you know Mitch, or how do you know Damian Mikulowski? I can't pronounce his name.
Yeah. So Damien and I actually go to the same real estate school. So I work
Okay.
right now at Investor Schooling with Larry Steinhaus and Phil Falcone. So I help them run the school, represent the school. I do presentations there, and I help bring on new students, and I just am kind of part of the industry and doing all that kind of stuff. And so that's how I met Damien. And then Damien saw me interview Les Brown on my show, and now here we are.
All right, so you just like brought in the perfect segue. Les Brown, right? You gotta be hungry. How the heck did you get involved with Les Brown?
So it was a ton of connections and a little bit of money.
Nice. Sometimes it's all you take. So you said you got some contractors going on today. What are you working on in the house?
So we got the whole kitchen being redone upstairs, and we're running some new electrical down in the basement now and stuff like that. So it's a big major renovation that's going on. It's almost the whole floor. We took down the wall. All that.
What inspired it, Fred? Why renovate the kitchen and the house?
Because the old one was over like 40 years old.
Yeah, that'll do it. So, all right. So if any noise issues run into any noise issues, we know what it is. So Fred, going back before we get really dived into this, because I already know a couple of topics we could talk about, and I know we're probably going to talk about the school system because it's probably failed. It failed me. It failed you. Fails a lot of people. Before we dive into it, how did you get involved in real estate? Like, what brought you to this beautiful asset class?
So I always start my story back when I was 7 years old. And when I was 7 years old, I started taking martial arts lessons. So I was taking karate as a kid, and I absolutely loved it. And as I grew older, I realized that karate classes, or at least the school that I was at, was really more so of personal development classes or kind of training the brain shrouded inside of kicks and punches. And when I figured that out, I'm like, wait a minute, I'm really learning personal development. I'm really learning self-improvement and entrepreneurship. Not so much entrepreneurship, but more personal growth and stuff like that. And as I got older, that led me to entrepreneurship, because lots of times they go hand in hand. We see a lot of success coaches and people like that, Tony Robbins, Les Brown, all those kinds of people that we look up to. And so personal development led me to entrepreneurship. My junior year of high school, when I was 17 years old, I took a class entitled entrepreneurship. And at the time, I didn't even know what that meant, that word. I just knew it was a business class. And I'm like, that sounds interesting. And I remember the day that the teacher was writing out real estate investing on the board. I'm like, that's genius. I need to do that. And then I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and that basically just validated basically my opinion of real estate. And I just was like, I got to do that. That's the thing. I want it. And so I joined basically a school, a real estate investing school in a community, and grew myself there, and became an asset there, and just went up since then.
That is probably one of the best stories I have heard. You actually early on realized, holy shit, I'm an entrepreneur, right? Because karate, my brother says it to me all the time. He teaches capoeira, which is also a martial arts.
I've done it.
You've done it, so you're familiar with
a little bit of everything, man.
Brazilian dance fighting and
Exactly.
and what he says, it's honestly, he's like, I train kids to like be able to handle things in their lives. Has nothing to do with, I mean, yes, physical movement is important, but like it's all about mental training.
Yeah.
So
the physical movement is to keep the kids entertained for a 45-minute class. You gotta catch the attention of 10-year-old kids. And so when they're moving, motion creates emotion. So it becomes disguised repetition at that point. But we had phrases that we would say at the school, and it's like a repeat phrase. We say the first half, and the class says the second half. And some of them would be like, I can always do better than, and the class will repeat, I think I can. Right? It's not what we do, it's how we do it. Hold yourself to a higher standard than other people expect of you. These were things that I said every single solitary class that I ever took from 7 years old to about 22. And from 17 to about 22, I was teaching karate classes.
Wow.
So it was this trial by fire, basically this, baptism by fire for my mindset and for my brain. And so now it's like a lot of this stuff is just ingrained in me. The
Right.
confidence, the public speaking, the perseverance, that whole thing is just there because it was there since I was a kid.
I'm writing this down. When I have kids one day, karate classes, it's early personal development. Honestly, I had no clue.
So one caveat, it depends highly on what school.
They're not all created equal.
Yeah. So not all schools are created equal, but I would say, yeah, go
Yep.
for it.
That makes a lot of sense. So, Fred, going into the school system, you and I asked you at the beginning of this, what's the most controversial thing we could talk about? I know people love controversy, and you mentioned the school system,
Mhm.
and it's a sore subject for me as well. I do feel like it's failing America. I feel like a lot of people go there thinking they have to, and they come
Right.
out, yes, they can read, they can write, but beyond that, they don't know really anything. They have no skills, they have no abilities. And so they come out of that and they say, well, what can I do now to make money? And the world's answer is not fucking much, right? Like if you want to make 30, 40,000, you're good. And if you live in a bigger city and you want to make 50, 70,000, okay, right? You're fine. But if you're looking to make more than that, you don't have too many options. What do you think? What do you think is the biggest thing that holds people back because of the school system? What do you think its biggest flaw is?
The biggest flaw. So it's funny because a lot of people look at the school system and they think, like you and I do, that there's a ton of problems with it. Well, really, in my opinion, there's only three. There's only three problems with the entire school system. One is what you hit the nail on the head, which is the skills we're being taught, right? We're not being taught things that can produce an income and worthy income, like you say, or things that really are used in everyday life. When I graduated high school, I took Shakespeare and calculus, and it's like, come on, what I always make jokes, and I'm like, look, if we spent less time reading Shakespeare and more time reading mortgage documents,
Right.
where would we be? And I always make the joke that like public speaking is the number one fear in America. But if we replace math courses in school with public speaking courses, math would be the number one fear in America.
Right.
And so it's disproportionate to what we need. That's the first problem. The second problem is the methodology through which we're being taught. I mentioned earlier being a karate instructor.
Yep.
Another thing that happens with the kinesthetic learning, the learning through motion, is that we remember more. So there's something known as the cone of learning. And the cone of learning basically describes how well we retain information based on how we learned that information. And the highest level of retention is actually going out there and doing it, right? I'm sure you know that your first real estate deal, you learned more than anything you ever read in the zillion and 10 books that you could have read about it, in all the YouTubes that you could have watched, all the seminars that you could have went to, and everything, right?
Yep.
Nothing replaces that experience. The bottom level, check this out. The bottom level, the lowest level of retention is listening to lectures and reading books.
Yep.
the two methods that we're taught in the school system are the lowest level of retention in there. So we need to flip the script on how we're being taught these subjects. And then the third problem is more so for colleges, which is just the financial sabotage that we have going on. I mean, the cost of college education is astronomical, number one. And number two, it's the worst possible debt. Yeah, exactly. Keep going. Keep going. We don't have enough room on this screen to show all that, right? The cost of college is astronomical. And the debt, I call college debt the gateway debt. You know why?
It starts the game off. It starts you off something small.
It starts us off in debt because look, the government wants us to be in debt our entire life. And that's why they structured college debt the way that they did. This is 100% my opinion.
Yep.
College loan debt is the only debt in America that is non-bankruptable. You cannot declare bankruptcy on student loan debts. You can go bankrupt and still owe that money to the
Yep.
school because the government wants to keep us in debt. What happens afterwards? We get a job. How do we get to our job? We got to buy a car. How do we buy the car? We use more debt. How do we buy our first house that we move into? We use more debt, right? We
Yeah.
marry somebody else who has other student loan debt. So we're just creating these debt mountains in our life. And then at the end of our life, whatever money we have left, we hand it all over to the nursing home. We're in what I like to call a financial pinch, right? From 0 to 18, you accumulate all kinds of money from communion parties and all kinds of birthdays and stuff like that. Then you give it all away to the government, the banks, and the corporations when you go to college. You go back down to zero instantly. Then you work for them your whole life. You become the HR department for the governments, the banks, and the corporations. And then at the end of your life, when your money's no good to you anyway, you give it all back to them at the end so that it can get circulated back into the system.
Yeah.
We are being preyed upon financially for our financial naivete is being preyed upon by the governments, the banks, and the corporations.
You know, Fred, you just opened so many conversations. In one of the biggest problems I see with the financial sector, and when you took the government and you put it all together, is that these are two machines that have to keep circulating. When you look at people are the cells, the muscles, the tissue, but the money is the blood. And if you don't pump it through the system fast enough, parts of the body die.
Sure.
And you know, the government is the brain that runs all of this, that gives us an opportunity. And we're just a bunch of cells in the body operating. And if they're not getting blood moving to us, they suffer, right? But at the same time, for us, if we're not using the money the right way, because on the other side of that, they are right on some level. Currency needs to move, right? It's got to keep moving, but they're not educating us on how to move it properly. And it goes right, like the money goes right to where it belongs, right? It goes to the wealthiest people on the planet because those people are good at collecting money. You know, they're just like the heart, like they pull it right in, like they're just very good at that. And some of them are creating new money, just like the lungs, right? Enriching it, making it keep moving. I could run this metaphor all day. It's apparently very good. I gotta dive deeper into this, but
yeah, this is I never heard it that way before, but that's a fantastic metaphor for it. It's almost like the way that you're putting it is that instead of training us on how to use money, they're allowing us to be the tool that makes money work for them.
100%.
In a sense. And that's what aggravates me about it is that, you know, it's not only that we have a curtain pulled over our eyes, it's that it's intentionally being put there by someone else who knows something that we don't.
Right.
That's the thing that gets me. It's not that school is bad. And look, I want to caveat this by saying I'm not anti-college and I'm not pro-entrepreneurship.
Right.
Neither of those. My sister is the perfect example. My sister went to school for 12 years, it feels like. She went to college for 12 years, got her master's, got her PhD, did a postdoc, and now she's off making well into six figures, working at a job and a career that she likes.
Oh, nice.
She was a good fit.
Yeah.
She fit in school. She was a straight A student her whole life, hit the dean's list, all those crazy awards.
Yep.
I was never a good fit. From kindergarten through 12th grade and the little bit of college that I did, I was a C&D student my entire life. I was behaviorally, you know, shunned, if you will. You know, I could never sit still in class. I had, you know, academically, I did, you know, mediocre at best. And I felt this, the biggest thing was the feeling, right? I wrote in my first book when I was 21 years old that everybody on the face of this planet is in search of the same thing, a feeling. We're all searching for a feeling, and that feeling is constantly moving, it's constantly changing, it's constantly growing and evolving, but we're just in this rapid pursuit of feelings every single day. And the feeling that I had in school was congruent throughout all of my schooling, and it was overwhelm, stress, anxiety, nausea, just this weight on my shoulders while I was there, and this need to get home and get out and away from there. And that I think is really another thing that led me to entrepreneurship.
It's almost like you were in a prison. You know, all the rules, the structure, the timing, and it's crazy because you are an entrepreneur, but a lot of the books in entrepreneurship, and you probably know the ones I'm thinking of, all require structure. They tell you you've got to wake up early, you've got to go out and do the same thing as everybody else every single day, and do a little bit more than everybody else, and that's how you become successful. I would venture to say that's not how you became successful.
Yeah, so it's interesting because morning routines are like a big buzz in the
Yeah.
entrepreneurship world. Every YouTuber, that gets any credibility creates a morning routine video.
Yep.
And I tried them all. I tried everything. I've read, multiple books, and I'm like, oh, all I got to do is wake up at 4:45 a.m. and go to the gym for 6 hours and read 2.5 books and do a yoga exercise for 3 days. Like it's the most ridiculous things that you come up with, right? Like the miracle morning and stuff like that. And I asked myself the same question that you did. I'm like, how am I supposed to create a life of freedom, right? Which is what we're all striving towards with entrepreneurship. When I create this massive amount of structure in my day, from 8 o'clock to 8:10, I'm eating eggs. From 8:10 to 8:15, I'm reading 4 pages of this book. Like, it doesn't make sense doing it that way. And what I realized is that nothing in your morning routine really matters. What matters is what you do after you wake up. Right? My
100%.
morning routine is this. You ready? Watch how easy this is. Right? Wake up, take a shower, get dressed, eat breakfast. That's it.
Fred, we have the same morning routine.
That's the morning routine,
Yep.
and then it allows me to do things like this. Because look, we couldn't do this call at 6:30 in the morning. That doesn't make any sense.
Right.
My business revolves around texting people, calling people, and emailing people.
Yep.
Who am I getting in contact with at 4:30 in the morning?
100%.
Right.
Nobody.
So
Yep.
so it's all about what you do after you wake up.
Yeah.
That's my personal opinion on it. And you look at Jocko Willink or the Miracle Morning or whoever you want to look at.
Ron L. Ron. Yeah.
And they might tell you something different, and that's fine, and that works for them. But to me, here's something that I always looked at. People kind of have this misplaced sense of diverting or diluting their problems. So in life, we all have these big problems, these big things that we're facing. Yep. But instead of facing up to the big problem, we present ourselves with this lower level problem and call that it, because we don't want to face up to the big thing. And here's the best way I can describe it. When I was a karate instructor, one of my coworkers always talked about push-ups, right? Lots of people don't like doing push-ups because they hurt, they're tough, they're difficult to do.
Right.
And so people do this in their head, and it's just a defense mechanism. It's something designed to keep us alive and a survival technique, where they'll say, oh, I'm going to do a whole lot of curls so that my biceps get bigger. And then when my biceps get bigger, I'll be able to do more push-ups. Right? And it's like, all you're doing is avoiding the push-ups. If you want to get better at push-ups, do more push-ups.
Right.
And my point with that story is this. If you want to gain more discipline in your life and be more productive, do the thing that you want to be more productive with. Don't tell yourself that if I wake up at 3:30 in the morning and go to the gym, I'm going to become more disciplined.
No.
That doesn't, do the thing that you want to be disciplined with. Don't do something else and try to claim that it fixes something over here.
Yeah, people try to take on too many projects at once, saying, hey, I'm going to go and I'm going to work out, but at the same time, I'm going to wake up early. I'm going to start eating better. And it's like, it's just too many habits all at one time. It's like, dude, just start eating better. Right?
I think that like half the time when people post their morning routine on YouTube, I think they add like 17 things because they realize like their video would be 30 seconds long if they didn't.
Right.
Like if you ever watch, do you know Caleb Maddox?
No.
So Caleb Maddox, an 18-year-old millionaire. I actually interviewed him, or I was on his show a little while back.
Yep.
And it's funny. He made a video when he was 14 years old of his morning routine, and it's like this 15-minute video of like he goes to the gym, he goes to the sauna, he swims in the pool, he plays basketball, and I'm like, why are you doing all of this stuff?
Right.
What is the point?
Right. No, I agree with you. I've always found that if I can wake up about 20 minutes before I have something to do, I will. Right. Mm-hmm. Like this is my first interview of the day. I woke up around 30 minutes ago, 40 minutes ago, and I'm fresh. I'm happy. I'm thinking, wow, I'm going to go meet a new guy. We're going to have a great conversation. Yeah. Like this is going to be a good freaking day. But if I woke up, like I could have woken up an hour earlier, but what would I have done? Right? What would I have done that was exciting to get me up? So, I stay up late at night reading or researching or doing fun things I enjoy doing that do tax the brain. If I did that in the morning, I wouldn't want to jump on interviews. I'd be so involved in what I'm doing. You just run what you love until you pass out.
Sure,
So
sure.
you
I
sleep
think that
thinking about it.
too. It's part of the idea that entrepreneurs use different hours than most 9 to 5ers will use.
Yeah.
Right. So lots of times I'm more of a late night entrepreneur, like you said, than an early morning entrepreneur. So like the other night I was up to like 1:30 mapping out, like my vision board, my mission statement, and all that kind of stuff. Just because I get stuck in that flow state, and there's a lot of lights in my basement, so I'm like, pacing back and forth. I got the
Yep.
whiteboard out and I'm drawing everything out. And so it's like we can utilize the hours that we want to use because we don't have the demands of someone who's a 9 to 5er.
Yeah. Dude, I love that you got the whiteboards. I love that you're in the basement. I got it all, brother.
That's so funny.
Yeah, I found the basement to be the best space I could finish, and it was brand new space, right? It was
Yeah.
like a way to steal some extra space out of the house. And there's about 13 whiteboards down here. Well, between down here and upstairs. No, I'm excessive. It's worse than it should be. But but it's cool. You get the concept. I'm in the living room. I can write something down no matter where you're at. Fred, so when you started, when you got into real estate, like you're obviously more in a educational realm now.
Mhm.
What was it, knowing how you feel about the school system, the public school system, what was it that made you say, I'm going to go educate, right? I'm going to go educate people. I'm an entrepreneur. Obviously the school system wasn't built for you. It wasn't built the right way for people like you and me. And so you had to build your own school, or what was the thought that went behind doing all of this? Because you're doing a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. So like you said, I've kind of transitioned out of the investing world and into more of the author, speaker, coach, consultant world now.
Right.
And the number one reason for that is because I like it.
Yeah.
And so as I'm sure you know, I have a little mantra, little kind of tagline, catchphrase that I use for everything, and that's make money and have fun.
Yep.
And my personal belief system is that if we can create alignment between both of those things, where we're making a ton of money and we're fulfilled, happy, and passionate, then at that point we have achieved success. Because think about it, we both know people who are working a 9 to 5 job, making a killer income, making a ton of money, but they're absolutely miserable. And then on the flip side, we also know the person who's just happy, gung-ho on life, but they're not making enough money to sustain that. Right. And so I wanted to come in and help people bridge that gap. And to answer your question directly, it's been that long, windy road. You see, personal development led me to entrepreneurship, which really started off with real estate investing. And when I got into the real estate investing game, I realized there's a lot of pieces to this that I'm not a fan of, that don't fill me up, they don't juice me, they don't make me want to keep going.
Which pieces are, like, if you could specifically.
So specifically, I'm not an acquisitions guy. I will never wholesale a deal in my life unless it's by accident or it's really easy.
Right.
That to me, in my opinion, is wasted time. Driving from the Rock of Gibraltar to Timbuktu and back to deal with non-business people who, let's be frank, are derelicts, jailbirds, losers, and on the brink of homelessness.
Yep.
To try to negotiate $100,000 or so deal with these jamokes, right?
It's funny you say it. I said that to Ron too. I was like, dude, like I do acquisitions and I've done it. I've been heavy in it, and I couldn't wait to get out of it. As soon as I could separate myself from that group of people who we do serve, obviously as investors, we serve them, but I just didn't want to work with them, and you noticed that early on. Very nice.
Yeah, so, absolutely. And I've always had a very high level of self-awareness. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with DISC tests at all.
Absolutely.
But I'm a high I. I'm a super, like I'm like a 96 I or so on there. So I'm almost like 100% I. So I'm always.
What are your secondaries? The D's in there.
ID, C, and S, I think.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it's ID, C, and S.
Yep. Makes sense.
Yeah. So I'm a super high I, so I'm always in deep introspective thought. I'm always thinking, and sometimes I overanalyze stuff.
Yep.
Like I got to get my D a little bit higher so I can actually take action and stuff. But it's great because I actually surround myself with high Ds. My girlfriend's a high D. My boss and mentor is a high D. He's actually 100% D. So it's like, because I'm surrounded by that, my D is growing in proportion to that high I at this point.
Right.
Um,
It's funny. I run a very similar disc, so I get it.
yeah, I feel like that's kind of the entrepreneurial disc,
Yeah.
right? In that sense. Um, but yeah, so I knew that. Here's the funny thing. My whole life, I was always really good at public speaking. I don't know why. I was like, ever hear like the natural born salesman?
Yep.
Like I was like a kind of like a natural born speaker.
Yep.
I never had stage fright. I never froze up. I never did any of that stuff. I just kind of went out there and I did it. And people used to ask me as a kid, do you ever get stage fright? And I was like, what's that? Because it never happened to me. And people have actually asked me to teach them public speaking. And I'm like, wow, I didn't even realize that I really knew this very well.
Right.
And so my thought initially at 22 years old was, I'm going to build a real estate empire, and then I'm going to use the cash flow from that real estate to go speak on stages. But
I did the same thing.
what I realized was I can actually do it a different way.
Yeah.
There's actually a better way to build this thing. And I said, why would I spend my time working in the real estate industry where there's a lot of things that I don't like, and there's a lot of development that needs to go into it that is not going to fulfill me, when I could just go on the stage? It's like I did the same thing. I worked on this thing so that I could get better at push-ups.
Right.
And I, like, we always contradict our own advice. So I was building this real estate thing, but really, in my defense, I didn't know that there was a better way.
Yeah.
And so what happened this year was I made a ton of associations. Like we talked about earlier, I met Les Brown. I met Greg Reed is another one of my big mentors, and a good friend of mine. And I met David Hancock, who's the owner and founder of Morgan James Publishing, as well as a ton of other people this year. My associations just completely exploded. Manny Lopez is one of my coaches.
Oh yeah.
And so I knew all of these people, and I was like, how can I take what I'm already doing and make it bigger? I wrote 2 books, one at 21, one at 24, and I just self-published both of them. And I'm like, what if I made a real book where it hits bookshelves, it hits major bestseller lists, and I just do this massive launch with it, and I use that as a pedestal to speak about, right? Yep. And I create a course around it, and I started to reach a position where I have enough money coming in to actually hire videographers and virtual assistants and all these people to actually get this infrastructure going. And I just realized that really the author, speaker, coach, consultant world is a lot more fun to me than the investing world. And it's not that I'm done with investing. I'm definitely still going to invest,
right.
But I want to put this out there forward, because the 2 things that I love in this world is I love public speaking and I love teaching. I love giving somebody that paradigm shift when you can see it in their face and they're like, oh, that is fulfillment to me.
Yeah.
I'm like, I know that I gave that to somebody.
Yeah, it's like sugar, man. It's addicting. It's like you want more, and it doesn't. And the more you have, the more you want. Like, if you cut out sugar for 2 weeks, eventually you don't even want sugar, right? But like once you have that one bite again, it's like, oh yeah, I could definitely do this again.
Sure.
So training people, I've it's funny. I found this very similar course to Get This Way, and we still invest, obviously, but it's on a lesser scale. We try to do one deal a year. But they're bigger deals than they used to be. But like the stuff is all run by my business partner. And when I finally got to this point, I was like, dude, this is freedom, right? We get to train, we get to teach. We have a mission of building 100 millionaires. Like, why not, right? Like, let's see what happens. See if we can build 100 millionaires and inspire them to go build 100 millionaires and see like where that goes. And I don't know if you know Damian Lupo, but he said something very similar. He's a big syndication guy. Interviewed him yesterday, and what he told me was, he's like, I just want to break the system. He's like, I just want to break the whole money system, and by going out and teaching people and educating, he's like, that's an option for us, right? Because we're going to break the system, because eventually everybody's going to be rich and not have to worry about it. So what would you say is, aside from the fulfillment of helping people, what would be your thing that really you think is unique and fun about it? Because it's got to make money and it's got to be fun. It's something I pulled out of this conversation so far. And a rich guy told me once, he said, look, I'm too old and too rich to do anything that doesn't make me happy or doesn't make me money. And I know he pulled that from somebody else, but you've got the same philosophy. Like that's something that works. What makes you tick, man? Like what makes you get up in the morning and say, yeah, I'm running this life the way I'm doing it. I'm really happy with
Huh. It's
it.
a, it's an interesting question because I'm thinking about so many answers. So to rephrase your question a little bit differently, if you told me I could only do one thing for the rest of my life and I couldn't make any money with it,
Yeah.
that would be public speaking.
Yeah.
I would go on a stage every single day of my life or in front of a camera like this and just rap, just, go back and forth, talk about whatever it is that comes to my mind. I mean, it's just something that comes so naturally to me. And
Yeah.
I think that the why behind that why is that I love seeing people change. It's funny because I realize that what I'm doing is really a win-win,
Yep.
even though it sounds like it has a selfish spin on it. For me, it's like I love the fact that I can be somebody else's catalyst moment.
Yeah.
Right? I've had multiple catalyst moments in my life. One was when I took entrepreneurship my junior year of high school. It was a moment where I felt like someone took a cup of ice water and threw it in my face. And I was like, whoa.
Wow.
So, but my second catalyst moment was probably even bigger. And it was where, let me grab it here. So when I was working at the karate school, a friend of mine told me for my 18th birthday, which was coming up, he said, I got a book for you. And I was both thrilled and terrified. I was thrilled because I was like, man, this is such a nice gesture. Thank you. And I was terrified because I'd never read a book before in my life. And on my 18th birthday, he shows up with this book. So this is
Oh, no way.
Over by Dave Ramsey, right?
Yep.
And I'm like, okay, this is kind of interesting, right? It's not a novel, a Beverly Cleary, some hocus pocus horse crap that I'm never going to read. And I took this book home and it sat on my desk for like 2 weeks. And I opened it up and I read the first few pages in here. Then I lost my place, came back next few days, started over again, read it again, right? Did that 3 or 4 times in a row. And then finally I like sat myself down. I'm like, this is ridiculous. Look, it ain't that big of a book. Okay. It's right. 220 pages or whatever the heck it is. Right. Like I've done all this stuff in my life. I can read a book. I'm going to do this. And I finally sat down, I read the whole book. It took me a month because I'm a slow ass reader. But after I read it, I knew 2 things, and that was it. There's something else out there. I don't know what it is, but I want to find out. And that was my driving force forward. And now this book sits on a bookshelf with over 100 other books that are all self-help, personal development, human psychology, financial literacy, investing, you name it, right? You name the biggest books of all time, I've read them. Think and Grow Rich, How to Win Friends and Influence People, the 10X Rule, the Compound Effect, you name it, right? I've read them all. I've read them all, I've devoured them all, and that started my journey. It was almost like I felt like the Wizard of Oz, right? Like the curtain was pulled in front of my eyes, and I was moving it out of the way. And I'm like, there is something else out here. And that feeling that I had when I read this book, I want to get that feeling to everybody else out there. I always joke with people and they say, what do you do? I say, I sell glasses. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, I help people see what I saw. Right? I give them that clarity that came to me.
See life through a true lens.
Yeah, that really is what moves me when I recognize that I sit down with somebody and I actually gave them value and I shared something with them that has the potential to change their life if they act on it, that livens me up. And for me, it's more about the story. It's more about the fact that they can go 10 years from now and say, hey, I sat down with Fred Posimo one day and he told me X, Y, and Z, and my life was forever changed because of that moment. And that's like the selfish thing in it. But at the same time, everything that we do is selfish, right? There is no selflessness out there because once again, every one of us on the face of this planet is in search of one thing, healing.
Feeling, the pursuit of happiness. These are things that we drive, all across the country. We like chasing gold, chasing the stars, right? Like all the things that we do it's to feel, it's to go and do something different. Fred, I've learned a lot about you, but you got a training course. And so obviously training is something I promote and I suggest. And
Mhm.
I agree. My mountain of books, it's not like you and I could go back and forth and read a lot of books and
Sure.
discuss a lot of books. So definitely going to have to do this again. I've got to ask three pieces of advice. If you go back to 20-year-old Fred, actually, before I even ask that question, how could somebody get in touch with you if they wanted to learn from you, want to check out one of your programs, or just get some advice, set up a coaching session? What is the easiest way to contact you?
Yeah, the best and easiest way is to text me. So I actually give people my direct text number. It goes right to my phone. It's not to my team. So just text me. My number is 215-596-1515. Once again, it's 215-596-1515. And like I said, that comes right to me. Shoot me a text. And then if you're not a big texter, friend, follow me on Facebook, right? Be friends with me on Facebook. I'm super active on Facebook. It's actually where we met. And you'll see I'm always posting stuff on there. I'm always around, and I'm always accessible. I love meeting new people, and I'd love to bring you on board and share some insights with you.
I love it. So Fred Posimo, Posimo.
Posimo. Think of like a
It's funny because you
steam.
just said it.
It's fine. It's fine.
Posimo.
I used to wrestle in high school, and
Yeah.
after you win in a wrestling match, if you're in a tournament and you're going to move on, you write your signature, right? And my
Yep.
handwriting is worse than pronouncing my name. And so I write my name down, right? Adrenaline's pumping at this point because you just won. So my hand's shaking and I'm like going crazy. And my handwriting is atrocious, right? They tell you you just got, rip someone's face off and now you got to go walk across the room and sign your name. And so my handwriting is atrocious. And they had other high school kids read out the names. So they'd always go, Fred, I'm like, that's me. Here I come.
Fred with a P.
Yeah. So
Yep.
anytime it was like Fred hesitation, I'm like, that's me. That's
Yeah.
who I am. So don't worry
I
about
had
it.
similar situation. I love it, man. So Fred, if we can, three pieces of advice before we head out of here, three pieces of advice to give 20-year-old Fred going back so that you could change your life faster, make it more productive. I guess find money and happiness earlier in life. What three pieces of advice would you give to somebody?
These are good questions. I gotta steal some of these questions for my show. So the first thing that I would have done at 20 years old or possibly even younger is I would have built my credit faster. So a lot of people, again, mostly perpetuated by the school system and by society, a lot of people have a fear and a misunderstanding of debt. Today, I love debt. I love debt because it's a tool, and I learned how to use the tool. Right? A lot of people, it's like I give a great analogy on risk, and the analogy is two humans, one gun. A 13-year-old kid and a trained Marine go to a shooting range, and they both fire the same gun downrange. At the end of the day, which one of the two is going to think that guns are riskier? The 13-year-old kid, of course, right? The trained Marine is like, this is great. He's shooting behind his back, upside down, in between, like taking the gun apart, put it back together, fire it again. 13-year-old kid is like, oh, what the heck? I don't know. And that's how people often treat debt is they're like, oh God, I don't want to, is this thing going to go off? What's going to happen? Am I going to ruin my life here? It's like operating a wrecking ball. You can,
Yeah.
destroy a lot of shit, or you can build something beautiful. And so
Yeah.
that's the first thing I would have done is I would have built my credit instantly, right away. And in the last year, actually in this year, I increased my credit by over $75,000, which is what's
Nice.
allowed me to make these associations and find these friends and get into circles that I wouldn't normally be able to get into. And then I think would be the second tip is after you build the credit and build up the tool is invest in yourself. So I have a saying. And the saying is those who invest the most in themselves will have the most invested back into them. A lot of people look at paying a coach or a mentor $15,000 as like this astronomical amount of like, why would you ever do that? What's wrong with you? Kind of a thing. But they'll gladly give $400,000 for their college or university, right? But 15 grand going to, a multimillionaire to train you in whatever is a waste of money. And so I would say that would be the second thing. First is build up your credit. Second is invest in yourself. And the third thing is, I would say, look at what you're already doing and do more of that. And what I mean by that is this: a lot of people try to teach passion. They try to teach you how to find your passion. It's this stupid cliche in this industry, and I think that a lot of people do it in a cliche kind of a way. And they always ask you the dumb question, well, what do you want to do, or what do you like to do? And I'm like, hey, idiot, if I knew that, I wouldn't be here asking you how to find my passion. Like, it doesn't make any sense. So what I always ask people is, what do you do? Because I believe that people already do things that they like. For the most part, we avoid pain and we move towards pleasure. And so if we're doing that, we're already doing something that we like. We just either A, don't recognize it, or don't do it enough to fulfill us. And so I always used to say that, like, if you show me your room, I'll show you your life. And what I mean by that is, you know, you're in your basement right now and you got 13 whiteboards and books and all kinds of stuff. It's like I could walk in and I could tell you, you need to be an entrepreneur. You need to be coaching. You need to be a consultant. You need to be writing books. You need to be speaking, both virtually and on stages. And if you want, you should probably invest a little bit too. You know, just because of what I see in your room. Your environment is always stronger than your willpower. And people do that intentionally, right? A lot of people don't understand opportunity. Opportunity has 3 steps, and most people don't get this. Most people think that step number 1 is recognizing the opportunity. No, you're way off. Step number 1 is putting yourself in an environment where the types of opportunities that you want are abundant. Let me go back to the room analogy. If I walk in your room and you have guitars all around your walls and a keyboard and a synthesizer and a headset, I know that you're a musician. This is the thing that you like. And you're complaining because you're working at a 9-to-5 desk job every day and you're absolutely miserable. It's like, let's look in your environment, right? Now, would you wager to guess that if you hung out with other musicians and you went to shows and you went to bars and clubs where musicians are playing and open mic nights and stuff like that, would you wager to guess that there would be an opportunity come your way if you were in that environment? Of course. Yep. So that's 1, is you change your environment. 2 is recognizing the opportunities as they come by. Greg Reed taught me this, and it's a really good lesson. He said most people, the thing that they want in life comes to them, but it doesn't come to them in the form that they thought it would. And so therefore they pass it by. And he uses the analogy, you tell yourself, I want $100. That's my goal. I want $100. So you're expecting a $100 bill, right? Hold it up. Yeah, a $100 bill to come by. But instead, some guy drives by in his truck and he says, hey man, I got these cans in the back of my truck and I got to get rid of them. Do you want these cans? And you go, no, I don't want cans. I want $100. But had you looked a little bit further, you would have realized you could sell those cans for $100 or more and find that $100 that you're looking for. So recognize the opportunities when they come by, because sometimes they might be disguised. And then step number 3 to opportunity is taking action on it. Because lots of times we see them and we revel in it. And we're like, this is great. I got an opportunity. Woohoo. And then you never do anything with it. So those are your 3 steps to opportunity. So those are the 3 things that I would say. I don't remember what I said now. Increase my credit, increase my debt, invest in yourself, and do more of what you're already doing. Do that thing that you already love to do and step into it, right? I feel like finally, you asked me earlier why I transitioned from investing to speaking. And the main reason is because I feel like I am finally stepping into my purpose.
Wow, Fred, what a powerful explanation. You gave the 3 tips, and the 3rd tip had 3 tips.
Right?
What a phenomenal job, man.
I'm going to have to go back and watch this and take notes on this.
This was a training course all on its own. This was
right?
You saying, look, this is what it is. This is what people can do.
So
and this is where we're going.
We're going to sell this for $500. You and I will split it 50-50. And, just go to our link down below and pay us your credit cards and we'll be good to go.
So run to the back of the room, take action. This is your chance. Successful people, take action now.
Yep.
Make sure you like, share, subscribe this episode, put it all over the place, put it on YouTube, put it on Facebook, let people know that you learned something. Social proof is so important. If you can share this with somebody and it changes their lives, you've done them a big service, and they'll think you're cool because they'll recognize that you're a good person just like them. People find that the things they share represent themselves. And so share something like this and allow people to have the opportunity to learn more about self-development, learn more about Fred and what we're doing here in Alchemist Nation. If you want to learn more, you want some free training, go to gualtermello.com/live. Come Saturday. Every Saturday, we teach the 52 wealth principles and we attach them to one of the books that Fred was talking about. Every principle has a book. And I think I recognized the one thing a little while ago when you were talking, Fred, is, finding your why, finding your purpose, and then just doing one thing, doing it very well. And, Warren Buffett, and I got to close this out, but Warren Buffett said, you could work people. He was in a training room with students and they said, well, I want to be this, and then I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to finally do what I really want to do, which is start my own business and run this. And Buffett said, he looked at him and said, why don't you just go do that? Just go do that first instead of all these other steps in between. You don't need college for what you want to do. Just go do it. And the whole room clapped, and I think Bill Gates was there. But you just said it in the simplest way, Fred. Find what you like, find what you're already doing, and just do more of it. Money will come to you. You've just got to figure out how to operate within that realm. And some powerful information. Thank you so much, Fred. I appreciate your time. And if you can, shoot me a text with that phone number so I can put it on the website. And I'll just tell people text only. Obviously, you don't want your phone blowing up.
Yeah,
That said, man, cheers to your success. Keep running with your mission. When you have a choice, always work with the best.
thanks so much, man. This was great.
Thank you, brother.
You got it. Have a good one.